Hi everyone, I am Girish Tatya and I am working at Qualcomm as a software engineer. तो मैंने कुछ मंथ्स पहले ही Qualcomm ज्वाइन किया है थ्रू ऑन कैंपस प्लेसमेंट्स एंड इस वीडियो में आई विल बी शेयरिंग माय Qualcomm's ऑन कैंपस इंटरव्यू एक्सपीरियंस along with answers to some of the common questions जो मुझे LinkedIn पे आए थे, like how did I prepare for Qualcomm interview, what all resources did I use during my preparation, how many rounds were there in total, and what all questions did they ask in each of those rounds. ऑल्सो एट द एंड ऑफ द वीडियो मैं आपके साथ कुछ टिप्स एंड ट्रिक्स शेयर करूंगा दैट विल हेल्प यू टू क्रैक द इंटरव्यूज ईजिली. सो डू वॉच द वीडियो टिल द एंड. तो as I mentioned, I got an offer from on-campus placements. So Qualcomm came to our campus on mid of October 2023 and they came with openings for 4 roles: software engineer, hardware engineer, ML engineer and RF engineer. So out of these, I only applied for one role, which was software engineer role. They had some eligibility criteria जो आप screen पे भी देख सकते हो. After this, they had the resume screening round and I was shortlisted for the next round, which was an online assessment round. So now coming to the online assessment round, this round was conducted on the Hire Pro platform on 17th of November. And the test was divided into 3 sections where each section had 20 questions that were to be solved in 30 minutes. So the section 1 was primarily focusing on aptitude, wherein the questions were based on topics like data interpretation, time, distance, speed and work, then profit and loss, seating arrangement, logical reasoning. So basically यहाँ पे आपका critical thinking capability as well as basic mathematics skills test हो रहा था. Then the second section was based on the programming MCQs, जहाँ पे topics like structures, unions, pointers, storage classes like externs, static, as well as C and C++ output based questions, and some of the questions based on OOPS concepts like polymorphism, abstraction, copy constructor. Then third section was testing your computer fundamentals knowledge. यहाँ पे the focus was based on operating system concepts like paging, threading, mutexes, semaphores, also DSA, because उसके बिना तो most of the tests are not complete. तो the topics from DSA like linked list, bit manipulation, sorting, trees, etc. One important point to note was all the questions had a negative marking. But I didn't read the instructions carefully before starting the test. तो एग्जाम देते वक्त मुझे पता नहीं था कि क्वेश्चंस में नेगेटिव मार्किंग है. तो मुझे मेरे ये दोस्तों से पता चला आफ्टर द एग्जाम वाज ओवर. तो वन टिप फॉर यू ऑल, जब भी आप ऑनलाइन असेसमेंट दो, एग्जाम स्टार्ट करने से पहले जो भी इंस्ट्रक्शंस लिखे गए स्क्रीन पे वो अच्छे से पढ़ लेना. तो आफ्टर दिस राउंड आई वाज शॉर्टलिस्टेड फॉर द फर्दर राउंड व्हिच वाज द टेक्निकल इंटरव्यू राउंड. Okay, so now coming to the first interview round, which was a technical interview. So the interview started with a friendly introduction that helped me set a relaxed tone as well as calm my mind. The interviewer then went through my resume and asked me to explain 2 of the projects. So I took like 8 to 10 minutes explaining these projects, and we had a great and an engaging conversation around those projects. Also, since I had mentioned about 1 year of industry experience working at Oracle Financial Services, the interviewer was also interested in it. So I briefly summarized about the responsibilities, the challenges faced, and how did I overcome those challenges. The interviewer was quite satisfied with the answer. Then he moved to the technical questions part. So firstly, he asked me about what is structure member alignment and padding in C programming, because it had reference to one of the projects that I had mentioned. So I explained him about it and gave the justification for it. Then he moved to the next question, which was based on probability. Yeah, you heard it right, probability. So you can see the question on the screen as well. So the question was something like, I was given an 8-bit integer where all the bits are initially set to 0 and I can flip any 2 bits at a time. So what is the probability that after performing this operation, the integer becomes 12 in decimal representation? So you can try to solve this question and comment the answer in the comment section. Then he moved to the next question, which was based on DSA. From the bit manipulation topic. You could also see the question on the screen. So the question was like, you are given a bit stream and the task is to reverse this bit stream. So for example, if the input bit stream is 1011, then the reversed bit stream will be 1101. So I took a moment to come up with the solution and then explained him my approach clearly and also walked through a couple of test cases. So then he was quite satisfied with the answer. So then he moved to the next part and tried to test my conceptual clarity on topics from operating systems and computer architecture. So he started discussing on how to achieve synchronization between two processes, multi-threading, what is spin lock, then what is mutex versus semaphore, and some questions on POSIX threads. I could answer most of these questions with ease, but for these questions he specifically didn't provide me with any of the hints because he wanted to check how do I approach these questions and what is my thought process behind it. So the question was something like, he presented me with a scenario with three functions, A, B and C, which processes the inputs in sequence, and each function has some processing time. The task was to come up with optimal number of threads that can perform this operation optimally. So I had to also provide the justification for the number of threads that I have come with. So I provided him with the answer and he was quite pleased with the explanation. So all this entire interview round went for like 50 to 55 minutes, and I was quite happy that I could provide answers to most of these questions. And within a few minutes after the interview was over, I was called for the further round, which was second technical interview round. So now coming to the second interview round, which was again a technical interview. So this round also started with a friendly and a warm introduction. The interviewer introduced himself and also made sure that I was calm and settled, which was a great gesture, by the way, because I had just rushed over from another interview. Then he went over my resume and asked some basic questions based out of my resume. And then he asked me to mention some of the favorite subjects, to which I said operating system, data structures and algorithms, and computer networks. Then he asked me about what new thing I had learned recently in those subjects. Honestly, I didn't expect this question, but after giving it a thought for a couple of minutes, I was able to provide an answer to this question. Then he asked me a simple C program output based question based on pointers. You can also see this question on the screen. The question was quite straightforward and I was able to provide him the answer. So I explained him the code line by line and also drew the diagrams to illustrate pointers, and he was quite satisfied with my answer. Then he moved to the operating system subject, wherein he covered a lot of topics such as what is mutex and semaphore, what are the differences between them, when to use mutex and when to use semaphore, what is a race condition, what are the strategies for mutual exclusion, then what is context switching, thread context switching versus process context switching, some questions on threads as well, and what is an inode structure, basically everything about inode structure, then what is paging and virtual memory. And I confidently answered almost all of these questions and provided examples wherever it was applicable. Then he asked me some questions based on computer network subject, like what is UDP, what is TCP, how does IPv4 work, how does error detection and error control works in network layer, how does it work in transport layer. I answered most of these questions, and then the interviewer moved to the next question. So the next question was one of the difficult questions that I've ever faced in my interview. So it was a challenging scenario related question where the scenario was election vote counting. So he had some 3-4 constraints which had to be kept in mind while designing the system. So you could see these constraints on the screen as well. So this question was really a very thought-provoking question, and I had to think through a lot of scenarios, cases while coming up with the solution. And along with that, the interviewer also provided me some hints which helped me to come up with a final solution that made those requirements. So we also had a very good discussion and a healthy discussion for like 15 to 20 minutes on this question. So overall, this interview round was a very positive for me as well. I almost answered every question with proper explanation. So I was quite confident that I will be shortlisted for the next round. And after this round, the same thing happened. I was called for the further round, which was an HR round. Okay, so now coming to the last round, which was an HR interview round. So this round was surprisingly very brief, and it went for like maximum 10 minutes. So this round the HR asked me some typical HR questions like my willingness to relocate, or if I could work in any of the team, or whether I have any job location preferences. So since my second round interviewer had described me as a strong hire to the HR, so I felt like this round was more of a formality for me. And then at the end of the HR interview, he asked me whether I have any questions for him or not. So I took this opportunity and asked some of the questions that I had in my mind, and also I shared the job location preference. Now then came the best part, which was like the HR told that I am selected. So finally the interview process, which started at like 8 a.m. in the morning, got over around like 11:30. So it took like 3 hours. So now coming to the last part of the video, here are some of the tips that you can follow which will help you to crack the interviews as well as online assessments. Tip number 1 is prepare data structures and algorithms thoroughly. Nowadays, most of the online assessments as well as interviews are heavily DSA focused, especially for the fresher candidates. So for this, you can follow any DSA sheet that is out there on the internet for proper structured preparation. And I personally followed Striver's A to Z DSA sheet and ensured that I finished it before the interviews. Coming to tip number 2, you have to study operating systems topics very well, especially topics such as mutexes, semaphores, threading, synchronization, deadlock, mutual exclusion strategies, paging, virtual memory. All these topics are very important. Tip number 3 is you have to study OOPS concepts along with examples. So the 4 pillar of OOPS: abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. So you have to understand these and ensure that you are studying along with real world examples for this, because it will be needed in your interviews while you are explaining those concepts. The next tip is be confident throughout the interview and think out loud. Your interviewer should know about how you approach the problem. This not only helps the interviewer to understand about your thought process, but also helps you in case you are going in the wrong direction, as the interviewer may try to give some hints or he also may try to correct you. The next tip is be thorough with your resume. You should know each and every detail that you have mentioned on your resume. And one important thing to note is you should never lie on your resume. Do not ever lie on your resume, because the interviewers are experienced folks and they are smart enough to figure out whether you are lying or not. So these were some of the tips that you can follow which will help you to crack the interviews. Okay, so if you want me to make more such videos about interview experiences, then do comment on this video. Also, if you found this video helpful, then do like and share the video and subscribe to my channel to stay tuned for more such videos.